Groundwater is very often forgotten, and it's not all fresh water, and we have to care for it. And however you impact that water now is going to affect future generations as well.
Groundwater is not just this mysterious thing, but there's a lot of kind of mysticism and wonder that's associated with it. One thing that we often hear is that groundwater is not photogenic, and it's hard to get people to care about things that they can't visualize. And so I'm sure that's why we have polar bears as kind of the poster child of climate change. We can visualize groundwater depletion from space, and we have at least some tools to tell that story. But then once we start to get a little bit deeper and start to ask, like, well, what about all the all the old oil wells down there, and deeper groundwater use, and what is that doing? Has it changed the hydrologic system? So we need to bring other visualization tools, and just because we can't see it just doesn't mean we can't create really powerful visuals.
So Deep Time is science and art visualization and book ultimately about groundwater and all of the challenges that revolve around groundwater. So like water quality and its degradation, and then what it means to humans, but also future generations, because that water is traveling in the ground for decades, centuries, millennia.
Together with Professor Jennifer McIntosh, Louise was able to work with us, and we provided her with a series of maps and ideas and a bit of data that essentially the story goes deeper into the Earth, which normally means older and more mysterious, more poorly characterized parts of the groundwater system. And each one of these things became essentially a page of a book.
So I'm also a hydrologist, right? But I focus on whatever happens at the surface. I have illustrated my own science, but I had never done that for someone else's science. I really wanted to challenge myself to try and give a visual representation of something that you can't see with your own eyes.
Art can be such a powerful tool to help us communicate. We talk to each other with journal papers and graphs and figures, and this is something that has some emotion. And so being able to work with Louise and have her turn some of this and our stories into artwork, that was a great experience.
Topics that we've been talking about with Grant and Jennifer and that I've illustrated are also oil extraction. The amount of water that is being moved as oil is extracted, I had never thought of it that way. So I tried to portray that in one of the pieces as well, and what it's doing to the water quality.
And then going down into the deepest layers and like the oldest groundwaters that have ever been found, right? That they haven't seen the surface of the Earth for over 1 billion years, right? And it boggles the mind to think about, well, what does that mean? That's so far back in the Earth's history that most of the rocks that we're standing on here in Saskatchewan, they weren't even around yet.
This piece that portrays how little is known about the layers that are further and further down is portrayed as the night sky with constellations. Essentially, it seemed to me like we know very little about that groundwater layer, and perhaps even less than we know about the stars above our heads. But we're like walking on that earth. So it's incredible to think about it that way. That story of you flicking the pages of the book and going down through the layers is something that makes you think of that science that's behind the book. If you have no knowledge about groundwater, you can still go there and appreciate the piece in its abstractness. There is always the opportunity for you to read the book and read a bit more about the technicalities of groundwater.
These images that resulted from our conversations, you almost have to have the text that we worked on to lead you through it. Louise was able to take our story and translate into art, which I wasn't expecting. I don't know what I expected.
I hope it inspires more scientists and artists to collaborate maybe and share their perspectives with others who are not necessarily in the same discipline. Being able to share that information is in a way that's more accessible to them and that touches them emotionally as well. I hope it inspired younger generation maybe to become water scientists.
We need to be able to communicate better what we as scientists think the issues and the challenges, to have something like this to help develop a narrative around groundwater, bring some emotion to it. I think that's helpful, and hopefully it's just increased awareness and makes people think about this forgotten, out of sight, out of mind part of the hydrologic cycle.